Regular meeting for Wednesday, January 19th, 2022 at 7 p.m. Roll call, Manager Turley.
Commissioner Stump.
Here.
Commissioner Atwood.
Here.
Commissioner Gray.
Here.
Commissioner Zona.
Here.
Commissioner Wengren.
Here.
Commissioner Goss.
Here.
Commissioner Higas.
Here, could everyone please stand and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I don't think the pastor's here tonight. Just could we please have a moment of silence? Thank you. If any residents would like to speak tonight, could you please sign the book at the podium? Thank you. First resident is Mr. Morgan. If you want to come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, please.
Okay, my name is Bob Morgan. Bob Morgan. I live on 871 Northeast Drive, right down here off of Brownstown Road. And I want to thank you, commissioners, for serving the community again. And I want to thank the road crew for the awesome job they did with this local snowstorm. They did a phenomenal job. So there's a list of things that I want to bring up. It's no big deal, but if I get overwhelmed, just cut me off. So I want to thank the road crew for putting a new sign up down Norton Avenue. That's really nice. And on the east side and the west side, we used to have township signs that says "Welcome to the community." But there are no. Well, this one down here in the west side, somebody knocked it over. So there's a possibility to get maybe the new logo and put that on our PennDOT. I don't know if you have to get an okay with PennDOT to do that or not, because they used to have them on both ends of the township. I just thought that'd be a nice added feature to the township. And I noticed Irwinboro and Monroeville, at the stop signs and certain signs, they have like a reflective tape on the galvanized sign. Is that a possibility we could look into doing that in some of the major intersections within the township to improve visibility for that? Okay, and last meeting you talked about that HVAC unit, the extended warranty thing. I'm concerned about how much does that HVAC unit cost to begin with. I'm not worried about the cost. I'm worried about if something goes wrong with that thing. Because I know when I bought my last car, I got the extended warranty, only because there's so many computers on these cars. If there's a computer, something else in these HVAC units, it may cost a fortune to get that fixed. So having the extended warranty, from what I understand, at $3,000 or $5,000 might be worth it buying. I don't know what that unit costs, with all this technology the way it is today. And with this new recycling program, they brought up that we get money rebated at the end of the year for recycling. And what do we use that money for once we get that money? And then does that include commercial accounts too, if they recycle, like the cardboard stuff? And if you have a business you think should be recycling, are they required to recycle? And I mean, I know there's a couple of businesses, they're throwing a lot of cardboard away. And another question I have is, what is the millage going to the Norton Library? I understand it's like 1.8 mils or something. And what does that total cost contribution for the township? Okay, the last meeting I brought up the need for a senior citizen center or a community center. I talked to George Dunbar's office today. They're going to get back to me soon with the manager. Either has to go through the township to get the grant money, or has to be through some reputable organization. So that's something I'm working on, but I'm giving you a heads up on that. And Hempfield just got $1 million grant. So evidently Hempfield has a grant person that goes out for this money. I suppose North Huntington does not have this, or is there a possibility that we could hire somebody part-time? If that warrants us going after money that we should be entitled to and we're not getting. So that's something I think we should look into. And one other question I have, I guess they're trying to put a Jake brake notice sign up here by Maltz Lane. My question is, does that have to be approved by PennDOT? And why just that section of highway? Because I'm a former truck driver, and I know Jake brakes serve a purpose, but not on the level. But Jack downhill, Jake brakes slow those trucks down. There's a need for Jake brakes, but I don't know what the situation is up there. So that's all I have. So thank you.
Thanks. And we have one other resident. If you want to come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
That's you.
No, I'm just reiterating what
Okay.
about. There's
Just-
nothing here for senior citizens in this town.
You just want to state your name and address for the
Oh.
record, please?
Debbie Howe, 11169 White Street.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I live in North Huntington all my life, and I have to go to Penn Township and pay for activities. There's nothing here in North Huntington. Last time my brother-in-law was here, and he said, I guess he addressed it, and somebody told him that there's no room in this township. Wonder why? Because Mr. Schuster takes up all the township. Now I hear he's out in Penn Township. What's he gonna do out there? Like Bob said, I play up in Hempfield. I pay up there for activities. I pay in Penn Township for activities. But yet I pay taxes here in North Huntington, and I have nothing. There has to be room. I mean, do something for these senior citizens. Is the high school pool going to open up for senior citizens? I mean, you know, I know a school board member said that's a liability thing, you know, too. But so is Hempfield and Penn Township when you play on their property, you know. But it's just really upsetting to a lot of us that have to go outside and pay, you know. So if we can find some kind of empty building, you know, some church or something, a lot of activities coming up. Big thing is pickleball, which I play, love, and that's what I'm playing in Hempfield and paying for. You know, so I know COVID shut a lot of stuff down in here, but I still think that we as a township, as big as we are, we can still do something for these senior citizens. So,
All right, thank you. I think we can touch on a few things with Mr. Morgan. I think, Rich, maybe look into some of the things you mentioned about the stop sign, I guess reflective tape, see if that's something we want to explore. And then you mentioned something about also the warranty, the Board of Commissioners, unless someone's changed their mind, we had that discussion last week, and we weren't in favor of going with the extended warranty. And I think the warranty was just going to cover the condenser and the condenser board as far as, it wasn't the whole unit, it was just those two items.
The chiller, and I think
Yeah.
I looked after the meeting last week. I believe that the chiller was around $52,000. I believe the overall cost installed and all the other things they're doing is $747,000, which was a very competitive bid when we received it. We were very even surprised. So we thought it was excellent with all the issues that are having cost and materials and so forth. But the board did chose not to pursue the warranty for the chiller.
And then you mentioned, I think, also about the Senior Citizen Center. I mean, if you want to reach out to, State Rep George Dunbar's office, I mean, I think the board would be more receptive, happy to work with you if you want to explore options that we can maybe look at. I know we've looked at things in the past before. So, yeah, I would appreciate that work if you'd be interested in doing that. I think you also mentioned about a Jake break on Maltz Lane.
Yes, the question was, does it, yes, Route 30 is a state road, and PennDOT permits that. They actually limited the westbound movement. It limited because there was a greater than 4% grade in one area. So, yeah, you correct. They have standards, and if it's over that amount, they won't allow you to use the Jake brake. So we're signing it in that area, but there was some limitation because of the slight grade as you go, Rich, as you go westbound past Maltz, it starts to drop off more than 4%. So they limited the area where the westbound movement could be signed.
And I guess Rich too, I forgot to mention, resident that mentioned about maybe getting new signs for the east and west part of the township. I guess that's something we could do, but we'd have to get a permit from PennDOT to probably put in the right.
Well, this has a long history. We've been wanting to do this for a long time. We had discussions with PennDOT going back some time. They basically don't want them, not in the right-of-way. They don't want them, even though there's signs in the right-of-way all up in that 30. They don't want them, even though Forest Hills has a structure over 30, and so. But they just don't want them. So you really need to get them outside of the right-of-way, and that becomes a problem. It's really a project. You have to have an easement. You have to own the property. It's been difficult. We wanted to put one in up at Summit and down at Logan. We had some we're not going to be able to do that too easily. So we sort of dropped it a little bit in favor of, we did the sign at Public Works. Norwood Avenue was a great place because people are stopped there. We find that where traffic is stopped is actually, they see it a little bit, they're just driving by. We would like to do where the boundaries are, but it'd be difficult. So we've sort of dropped. We've also looked at scaled down signs we have other gateways like Lincoln Way, 993. There's some other areas we were interested in signing and put our logo out too. But PennDOT has been lukewarm and not receptive to within the right of way. So we have to go out and do get an easement and so on and so forth. So they sort of, we did the Norwood project and we haven't moved with the other ones because of some difficulties.
Right. We're working on it.
Murraysville has a beautiful sign. I'm sure that's on private property, and they probably get funding to get those signs.
Stay tuned.
Make it welcome to the community.
I have a question. Where we already have an existing sign, like by the Dairy Queen, coming in, driving west,
Yes.
when it's all faded, do we still have to go through those procedures if there's already an existing sign, it's just really faded?
No, we should be able to replace a sign in kind, the same size. Yeah. We were looking at logo, not more involved signs.
That one's really faded.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we could. Yeah. So we were looking at decorative landscape signs with a little bit of structure to them, some stone things that are more. We'd have,
Yes.
Yes, and then in some cases they get too far off the road and they're not as useful, and it runs into a lot of issues. So we have had some conversation with some property owners, not recently, but there is a location that we're looking at coming eastbound as you come into the township. There was a real old sign there that's been taken down, and we were hoping to be able to. We thought there must be some kind of easement there. So there's been some discussions with a property owner there. This comes up from time to time. We've talked about it on and off for years. It runs into some issues. We have done some stuff, just not gateway, not at the entrances, because the properties, PennDOT, and trying to find a good location has been problematic.
All right, and I think the last thing you mentioned, you're asking a question about the library tax, and I guess that's done through the school district tax, so that's not anything to do with the Township Commission and the board here, so that would be a question directed towards the school district. I think, if I'm not mistaken, we kind of touched base on, I think most of your questions or concerns, if I'm not mistaken. And then the other resident, Debbie, you were asking about the Senior Citizen Center too, so we could try to explore that option and different things. I know, again, you're asking about the pool. That would be geared towards the school district, and use of any school district property. You would have to go up maybe and request that from the school district. Obviously, the Parks Department puts on different programs throughout the year. If you'd be interested, maybe you could talk to the Parks Director, Mr. Miller. If there's something that we're not offering that you might be interested in, we can maybe try to work together and get something put together for the seniors that they're interested in.
I just want to make a a comment regarding the senior center. There's to be a senior complex built behind the Norwin Library, and the perfect place to put a senior center would be there. If the developer or the county would be willing to maybe preserve some land for a senior center, that would be the best thing. That maybe North Huntington could get together and, agree on something there, in addition to the county. So maybe the first step would be to talk with the housing authority at the county, because I believe they're the ones that are directing that project. And regarding the high school pool, I've mentioned before about the crossing guards. We have an agreement with the township, or with the school district, that the township was to pay for the crossing guards in return for the school district paying for some recreation. And I know that this has come up before. I think Jason brought it up, that I'm not seeing anything in return there. So that needs to be investigated as far as this agreement. Are they keeping their side of the bargain on that? And the high school pool would be a good place. Now, I understand where they were trying to limit outside people into the school for security and for COVID reasons. That's understandable, but there should be some provision for that.
Just wanted to thank you for coming in and sharing your thoughts with us. One of my biggest passions is around senior citizens. And when I was running for this position, I spoke to several individuals that brought up pickleball. And I didn't even know what pickleball was. One person went to Monroeville to play. One person had to go to Hempfield Township to play. So you just bringing that up again, it is, something that I will be focused on going forward, and appreciate you bringing that up.
I just have one last question about.
Excuse me, sir. If you want to come up the podium, usually we don't have give and take, but it's okay.
Possibly having somebody could go get grant money that would be authorized, or expertise if we get to a point we need that expertise to go get that money. Is that something the township's willing to help us with?
Yeah, that's something we could explore. We've been in grant programs before, doing research projects on recreation community centers. We've done that before, so we'll have to see where the board's pleasure is and where it would go, but that's something we could look into.
Yeah, because that could be quite involved in logistically stuff that's beyond our mentality, possibly. Thank you.
And I think the engineer that we just secured, the new engineer, I think that was one of the things that they said that they were, proficient in getting grants.
Any other board comments on the citizens' input?
As far as pickleball goes, I too have not heard of it until recently, but I was talking with Mr. Miller. There are plans on adding some facilities to our parks, if I remember correctly, our conversation. And Mr. Miller is very, very responsive to our citizens in getting things in place for them. So if you have any questions, you can either reach out to me or you can reach out to Mr. Miller. He'd be more than happy to help you out.
Any other further board comments? All right. Approval of meetings minutes for the special meeting 12/9/21.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. For the regular meeting 12/15/21.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Payment of bills.
Motion to approve voucher number 13155 through voucher number 13216.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Staff reports, Public Works report, Director Albert. Anything to add to your report tonight?
It's been a long, hard week so far. We went through some struggles. I'd have to say That's probably one of the most challenging storms that I've gone through in my 27-year career here with the township. Just, some equipment issues along with basically the main thing was staffing issues with everything going on these days. It was a tough go at it, but, we fared through. Nothing major happened throughout the storm. No accidents, thank gosh. Nobody was hurt. Some minor equipment issues that we're able to, we were up and back at it, but, our guys, they really busted their butts for the good 30-hour period there on a short staff. So I got to hand it to them. They did a great job and very professional.
Thanks. Any questions on Public Works?
I think I speak on behalf of everybody here on the board where we thank you guys and your crew for the awesome job that they did this week. I've seen some people complain on social media. You're always going to have that, but my road was great. I live in the middle of a neighborhood. I couldn't have asked for better plow service in our township.
I second that. I wanted to share with you, I was at a restaurant earlier today, and somebody actually came up to me that knows that I'm a commissioner now and said that he wanted to compliment the Public Works Department because we have the cleanest roads in the area. So I thought that was some great feedback that I wanted to share with you today regardless.
Well, thank you, and I'll certainly, share all these, with our employees. It was and surprisingly, we got a lot of compliments, although, all along the way, we did a pretty good job, I'd have to say, so.
Thanks. Park Recreations Report, Director Miller. Anything to add to your report tonight?
Just one thing, if I may. Despite the challenges that my colleague has with the winter weather, the weather is ripe for our snowman contest, so I want to make sure that the public is well aware of our snowman contest, which goes through the end of February.
Okay.
Outside of that, nothing. Thank you.
Any questions on Park and Recreation? Thank you, Director Miller.
Okay.
Police report. Any questions on the police report tonight?
Nothing to add.
Thank you. Emergency manager report. I don't believe Mr. Mahinsky is here tonight. Any questions on the emergency management report? All right. Planning and zoning report. Fire officials report. Any questions on the fire officials report tonight? Subdivision land development, Director Fonzie.
Yeah, there are two items in front of you set for your approval tonight. The first is an amendment to Site Plan 3 of 2020. This is the Kenny Ross Mazda dealership. We spoke about the alterations to the site that they requested at last week's meeting, mainly due to the gas line that's running along Ham's Way that's kind of infringing on the site. So I'm just requesting board action to amend those plans for the Kenny Ross Mazda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor by stating aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
And then lastly is subdivision 25 of 2021, the Tomasic Consolidation Plan, requesting board action to approve this consolidation.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor by stating aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Solicitor's report, Solicitor Alexander.
Thank you. There's one action item on the solicitor's report this month. It is action to amend ordinance number 443 of the Township of North Huntington authorizing the placement of no engine brake retarder signs along State Route 30 between Maltz Land and Bethel Road.
Motion to amend.
Second.
Discussion.
I do have a question. Where did this ordinance originate? Up until the last couple of weeks, I don't remember talking about this before.
Yeah, it was on the, we discussed this months back in the summer. I actually brought this up and asked for it to be put on the agenda. I got a lot of complaints from people on Bethel Lane there that sits right along parallel to Route 30 in that area. The main complaint was that the trucks coming eastbound on 30, when they came around the corner and saw a red light up ahead at Maltz Lane, they would hit that Jake brake and ride the Jake brake down there. And there's houses that are right along on Bethel Lane there that were making complaints to me. So I brought it to the board. We did discuss it at length in here, and we voted on it.
It's fine. I couldn't remember where it came from. Sorry.
That's all right.
Any other discussion? Have a motion and a second. All those in favor by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved, 7-0.
That concludes the solicitor's report.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Township manager report. Manager Turley.
First item is an action to approve the December check register.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor by stating aye.
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 Opposed? Motion approved, 7-0.
The second item is for your information, is the December 2021 budget report. Item 3 is an action to approve resolution number 1 of 2022 to agree to the terms of the Pennsylvania Opiate Misuse and Addiction Abatement Trust.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor by stating aye.
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 Opposed? Motion approved, 7-0.
Item 4 is an action to appoint Joe Korenik to the NHTMA Board.
So moved. Second.
Discussion. All those in favor by stating aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Opposed? Motion approved, 7-0.
Negative.
That's what I'm sorry. Sorry, Eric. I thought you said nay. All right. Roll call vote. Manager Turley.
Commissioner Stump,
Yes.
Commissioner Atwood,
Yes.
Commissioner Gray,
Yes.
Commissioner Zona,
Yes.
Commissioner Wengren,
Yes.
Commissioner Goss,
No.
Commissioner Haggis.
Yes. Motion approved, 6-1.
Item 5 is an action to appoint Kevin Zenk to the Emergency Management Committee.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor by stating aye.
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 Opposed? Motion approved, 7-0.
Item 6 is an action to appoint Robert Murda to the Emergency Management Committee.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion. All in favor by stating aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. That it for the report tonight,
Yes.
Manager Turley?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Any further board comments?
Yes, I do have one thing. I had been given by Director Miller a lot of information regarding the last attempt at having a rec center or senior center. And I have gone through that massive mountain of paperwork. And I am willing, if it's the board's pleasure, to head up another inquiry into seeing if that is a feasible thing for us to do in the township. I understand that we put it out approximately a decade ago now, and it was voted down. And with the change in dynamics of our township and the change of demographics, I feel it may warrant another look, which I am willing to head that up.
Any discussion on maybe moving forward and exploring a recreation center, or kind of dusting off the dust off the old report?
Jason, I think if you're willing to do a little research on that and bring it back to the board, we'd all appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely open to the idea. I just would maybe caution you, or if we create a search committee or whatnot, a feasibility committee. I think last time, I believe Rich was on the board with me at that time. I think the project maybe got $2,000 for what we were willing to spend. When I said we willing to spend, the township and the residents, if I remember correctly. a monthly membership for a family was in like the $150 range for a family. I think individuals were 50, couples were 75, if I'm not mistaken. And that's on top of, I think it was about $1.5 million bond from the township coming every year. Mr. Miller, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think those are rough numbers, if I'm not mistaken. So I think the project at the time, granted, I think the residents and staff that put work into it did a great job. I think it just might have got too big and too grand of an idea for what people were willing to pay for. So I think I would just caution maybe that maybe smaller project, and maybe if it grows, it can naturally grow and get bigger and bigger, but I'd maybe start smaller.
Right, if any residents or anybody wants to give me any input, my email address is j@atwood@nhtpa.us, or you can go under the commissioners, the township website, go to commissioners, you can find me there as well.
I would just like to comment that everything I've heard is true. Zach, I was on the board with him when we had the referendum. Jason, I appreciate you spearheading this, but the one caution I would suggest is that you not involve a lot of staff time, since we don't have a manager right now, and that needs to be our focus. And I know Mr. Turley is overwhelmed. I don't want to say overwhelmed. He's very busy at this point. So I don't think we can place any demands on him or on staff at this point. And maybe we get a new manager in place and then have something ready to present to him or her.
Yes, this is not going to be an overnight process.
No, it won't be.
This will take,
assure you.
Based on the amount of time it took me to read through all of the documents,
Right.
I can see where it ballooned out to where it became something that not only we couldn't afford or didn't really want. I guess everybody wants the Lamborghini, but this will be probably a slow moving task. Just so everybody knows, this will not happen overnight. Next few months, maybe even within the next year. So. But we do want to look into it and make sure we give the citizens what they want.
Any other further board comments?
I just have one thing, going back to what the gentleman here said about the signs on the east and the west side of 30. I would just like to direct you guys just to put new signs up now, new fresh ones, as Commissioner Wengren said, in lieu of, those other signs would be nice if you can secure a place to put those. But in lieu of that, I would suggest and just ask you guys if you would put up like fresh signs, because that does look a little better when you're coming into the township from Route 30, on Route 30. Thank you.
Any other further board comments?
Yes.
Can everybody hear me? I'd like to make a comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
So I would like to offer my condolences to the Ruthie Schuster family and friends. We lost a centurion this week. And if anybody ever knew Ruthie Schuster, man, she was the North Star. She was the most beautiful, pleasant, funny, lovable person that anybody could have ever met. I see it as a true blessing in my life that God gave me the opportunity to spend 5 years to know her and could call her my friend. She worked at McDonald's there down in Irwin on Route 30, just off the turnpike. What an amazing woman. God bless her for all that she did to this community and the light that she was to this community and to the lives of all the people that she ever touched. Again, my condolences to her family. And we lost a great one. We, honest to God, we really, really did. And thank you for allowing me the time to do this. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. I believe, Rich, you had something to say
Yes,
as well?
I do. I was hoping that Chief Rizzo would be here so we could have a little back and forth, but I won't put you in that position, Lieutenant. But in December, so therefore I will just speak to what we would have spoken to. And that is, in December, the former board authorized the police chief to enter into an agreement with the Attorney General's office whereby we have a police presence or personnel, let's say, basically working for the AG's office, and yet they remain on our payroll. We have the liability insurance, we have all the costs, and I believe he entered that agreement back in December. I think we were told that's true, Zach? Yes. And there was no public debate on it. There was no public discussion on it. There was no public vote on it. And that is not typical. Am I right, Craig?
It's not typical.
I would consider that a violation of the Sunshine Law that could be amended or corrected by having a ratification or a discussion or a vote in public, possibly at the next meeting when the chief is here. But I know that Mike Turley's opinion of it when he sent us the agreement was that he, from his perspective, was not in favor of it because of the costs, the liability, and other matters that fall on us, with the AG having all the benefits. One of the primary things, I believe, other than the risk and the cost of township tax dollars going to fund a AG employee, actually he would be whoever it is would be our employee, but act as a independent contractor to the AG, following all their guidelines and taking direction directly from the AG's office. And we have all the risk, and we have, I don't want to say no benefit, but certainly I believe, diluted benefit, because this officer could be used anywhere in the county, I'm sure. One of the biggest problems with the arrangement, in my opinion, is that it takes someone off the road in North Huntington. And we are short-staffed now in the police department. If we lend somebody to the AG's office, that reduces our speed control, which is a major complaint from residents. It reduces our manpower, and I think there should be a healthy public discussion about this. And I actually spoke to a few board members on the side about this over my concern that it wasn't raised in public. And I know several of them had concerns over not only the program, but also that it was done in private. So I had spoken to the chairman, is one of the people that I believe had concerns about it also, and he said he was going to put it on the January agenda, but I don't see it. So my concern is, and everybody knows I've been here before, my concern is in the last 4 years, I know some people have only been here 2 years, some are brand new like Lindsay, but in the past 4 years, this board has lost sight of transparency. And it is my goal to restore that. And although I'm aware of some other issues that were older, I'm only going to bring up this one because it was in December, and I think we can correct it. So,
Rich, I want to say I agree with you about the transparency piece, and that I think it is important to make sure that we are out in public. But my concern would be to make sure that we keep that that individual confidential, so that would be my only
I did not
concern bringing
mention
it- Right.
individual.
Right,
So
right,
we're
right.
talking personnel,
And I agree.
generic,
Yeah.
you know, could be random, you know.
But I agree that that's something
That's not the
important.
topic.
I agree that that's something important that
Right.
the public should be aware of, as long as we can keep it.
And I agree
Safe.
as well. In fact, when I mentioned to Rich that it's not typical, that was the first thing I said, but there was a lot of confidentiality involved in it. It was personnel related, and I understand that a lot of it happened in an executive session setting. So if I don't know that it's something that needs to be cured with the confidentiality aspect. I'll have to look at that, but if it does, we'll do it.
Okay,
Yeah, I believe.
you don't think that because it's tax dollars being spent outside North Huntington, that it should be public?
I know that there's a confidentiality exception within the Sunshine Law as well.
Okay.
I believe it was a personnel matter, and I don't know if Craig or Bruce was there at the time.
I was not
I
there.
think it
No,
was
Bruce
Bruce.
was there.
Yeah, I think it was Bruce. And I think it was his recommendation. It was a personnel matter that could be discussed in executive session. And I was opposed to the agreement myself, but it was the board's pleasure to make that agreement. I believe the agreement could be, we could get out of the agreement with a 30-day notice, if I'm not mistaken, mandatorily. So, I mean, if something we want to discuss, we could put it on the agenda for next, work session, discussion topics, ask the chief to come. We could discuss it, but I believe, being a personnel matter, it was able to be discussed and voted on in an executive session, if I'm not mistaken.
Clearly, it could be discussed in executive session. The issue is whether it can be voted on in an executive session, and I go back to the confidentiality section in the Sunshine Law. I'll review that. I was not here at that executive session. Bruce was. Bruce gave advice on it being a personnel issue, which it clearly was. But while you can just go
It
ahead.
was only a personnel issue because the chief specifically named individuals that were involved. It could have been just the agreement, blind agreement, which is what I want to bring up here. With no personnel, the blind agreement should be public.
I would have to agree that any intergovernmental agreement should be discussed publicly. Even if it's just the agreement, not the personnel involved.
Right. That should have never come up until we looked at the agreement.
We can put the agreement on if it's the board's pleasure for a work session discussion topic, and we can ask the chief to come, and we could revisit to even see if it's the board's pleasure to stay in the agreement.
That's good.
right.
That's fine. And if I can just add on to that, I know that there was a lot of talk whether that is a fair agreement or it's not. That is standard agreement. I mean, there's hundreds of police officers in the state of Pennsylvania that are working under those agreements with Homeland Security, with FBI, with ATF, with the DEA. That is standard. That's nothing that's out of the ordinary. That's how these task forces work. That's how these task forces get anything done, by bringing in local officers. I know of hundreds just who I worked with that are on task forces everywhere in the state of Pennsylvania. I know, like I say, I'm just clarifying, if you feel that's an unfair agreement, that's how they all are. That's a normal agreement for a police officer to get on a task force to work with a group of people at a common goal.
Commissioner Gray, if I may, I've been involved in it quite a long time, and I can tell you that the drug problem that we suffer from in North Huntington Township spreads far and wide. Unfortunately, we can't put walls around us, and the drug problem that our citizens experience come from outside as well as inside. And in having an agreement with a statewide agency is beneficial to our state, for our citizens. A lot of the crimes that are happening within our borders
are directly related to the drug problem. So the benefit to our citizens and the tax dollars that they pay, the AGs pay that officer's salary and their overtime rates. Yeah, I know the township does pick up a bill on the liability end of it.
And the straight time.
I'm sorry?
We pay the straight time too.
Yes. I'll let Chief Rizzo address that, the budgetary end of it, but I can.
I have the agreement, it
Yeah.
says that.
Yeah. So I'll pass this information on to him, and he can address it then.
And I fully understand your position, and we all have the same goal. There's nobody on this board or in the audience that approves of what's going on. My concern is that our tax dollars for the township are going to fund that agency. If they need people, they should hire them. But the problem is they don't want it on their budget. Whether that's administrative, the governor, whoever it is, Josh Shapiro, they don't want to pay for it. If they want our people, we've lost people to other agencies or other police departments. If they want our people, let them make an offer that steals them away. We don't want to lose anybody that we have, but they should be able to staff their own agency, not at our expense.
And again, I would just say to that, they are staffed. I mean, the Attorney General's up to their staffing levels, and what they do to complement that is these task forces. That's to complement what they have already. It's just to build to it and to give these communities more of a bang for their buck is really what it is. Again, like I said, every one of these the federal agencies too, every one of them that I named, they all have these task forces. They have state troopers on there. They have local officers that all work together on a task force. Again, they are staffed. This is just a complement, just to try to combat the drugs. Homeland Security has a task force at the airport to even get drugs coming in off airplanes. I mean, as Lieutenant McCurdy said, the drug problem, it's out of this world. You don't hear about all these overdose deaths.
Like I said, it's out of state. It's coming in everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's in our back door. And if our agency can share information with other agencies and our officers get involved in some cases that it may have started out of a traffic stop. It's nice to run a case to the end, being an officer. A lot of times you get little satisfaction out of that. In our job, we don't get many satisfying situations. Most of it's, you get maybe a little bit of joy here and there, but these officers work hard, and I can tell you, whenever they run a case and they involve themselves, everybody benefits. So
then maybe we should look at it as a opportunity to paint a good image and discuss it in public and let the people know what we're doing instead of in the room and what they're paying for. I agree. It may be,
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, we'll put it on the agenda for next week's
See, I don't think the
discussion,
question is whether or not is really discussing it now. I think it's that the question is it should have been discussed in public. And, I'm okay with discussing it in public, and I don't think that, until we get that opportunity, I don't think we should continue to go back and forth, because we're going to just do it again in a few weeks. So if we can just reserve it till then.
I would just say one thing to that. I mean, if that's how you feel, not one person said that in that room when we discussed it. We listened to our solicitor. What are you shaking your head for? Because you didn't say we should talk about it in public. No one did. Our solicitor told us it was okay to do it there. It wasn't Craig. He told us it was a personnel issue and we can do it. Not one person on his board raised that issue. I'm okay with let's bring it up next month and talk about it, because I can sit here for 3 hours and talk about it.
Maybe it was my fault for assuming, but I just assumed that it was going to happen because of the Sunshine Law.
We voted on it in there, basically.
I thought we voted to put it on the agenda to discuss it.
It was to approve the agreement.
I didn't think it was to approve the agreement, or else I wouldn't have voted, because this stuff needs to be done in public.
Well, as I said, I didn't hear anybody say that last month when we were in there, so.
You would have, except
You weren't on
I
the board.
wasn't
I'm
on the
not- no,
board
I'm not
yet.
correcting. I know you weren't on the board, yeah.
Believe me,
No.
I struggled.
Well, we'll put it on and we can discuss it next
That's
month's
good.
work session. Any other further board comments tonight?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Meeting adjourned at 7:52. Board of Commissioners held executive session prior to the meeting for personnel matters.